What's up, everybody? Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Welcome to a Monday playoff edition of Morning Cup Hockey presented by Bet365. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Johnny Lazarus. We have Vinny Malts joining us as a guest today, the NHL mental performance and player development coach. We'll hear from him. He works closely with the Edmonton Oilers, so it'll be cool to kind of hear his relationship with their team going into the Cup Final and other things amongst that. Colby, before we do bring Vinny on, how was your weekend? I actually had a complaint that I can save to the end of the show. I don't usually come on here and complain, but I have a flying thing that I want to see how people feel about that I'll save to the end of the show today.
Well, I just realized that because I can't I got a new computer, as I told you, and so it's not letting me into the chat. So I'm trying to figure out. I feel like you get a new computer, you gotta like relog into things. And so I'm trying to figure out how to like log back in to get into the chat because I was just about to say something. But didn't you play? You played in a charity tournament this weekend, right?
Yeah, I played in the Wish Cup, and to no surprise, I told Vic this before you hopped on. It came down. So my team was like in the semifinal, and it came down to like well, I guess there was only a championship game. So like there was 4 teams, only a final. And it was like a one-man shootout to get to the final because our team was tied with another team. My team picked me to shoot. I missed. They scored. We didn't get to the final. So typical that I'm not built for the big moment and, cost my team a shot at the championship. So I thought nobody would be surprised by that.
You blew it?
I blew it. Yeah.
Come on. How did you blow
and
it?
I didn't want to go. And the guys were like, no, you go.
Were you the best player on your team?
I went up against Vic would know the goalie. I'll have to find his last name. It was like a Russian goalie. He played one game for the Leafs. He's in the AHL now. It's like Kaz something. I feel bad for not knowing his last name. Vic might know it. I'll look it up as I'm talking here. But yeah, Kazmir Kaskasio. That's who I went up against, and he made the save on me.
Were you nervous?
The Leafs fans. Of course I was nervous. There were so many people watching.
So this is why we need to have Vinny Malts on today, because Vinny Malts is a mental performance coach.
I didn't want to go. I was never good in shootouts.
But you need to want to go, and that's the problem. You got to want the moment, okay? So
I didn't want it.
All right, look, Vic, really quick, because I know you're obviously listening. Vic, can you text me my Twitter password? Because it's making me log back into Twitter, and I have no idea what my Twitter password is, and I know you have it. So here's what I just want to do give a quick thought on Vinny before we bring him on here. Again, I thought this was a perfect time to have Vinny come on the show because he does do mental performance work for the Edmonton Oilers. Vinny is a local guy, South Jersey guy that I have known since I'm probably about 15 years old.
I hung out with him in Sioux Falls that weekend too. That I was there. That's where I met Vinny.
He does work with players all over. So I've known Vinny for like 20 plus years. He is a guy who has really got an opportunity to like see me go from like a kid, like an arrogant little jerk to like an adult jerk, and so
he's to blame.
So it is Vinny's fault. We played in a charity tournament together. That's like, I think the first time I met him was in a charity tournament all these years ago. He's going to actually play in the charity tournament with us in August. But, this is a guy who works with high level hockey players all over, starting at the youth level, all the way to the NHL. We worked together with the Chicago Blackhawks. He was the mental performance coach for the Chicago Blackhawks. And the reason that Vinny is so unique is because Vinny was a hockey player and Vinny was drafted to the National Hockey League. Okay, so he wasn't just a hockey player. He was a high-level hockey player. And, when you have a guy who does what he does, but can actually relate to you, I think that it just puts you in a little bit of a different light, the way that the players stare at you. Like when I played in pro hockey, the AHL, the NHL training camps, like we had a team sports psychologist, and when he would talk to you about ways in you could improve yourself to improve your performance, it always felt like you're talking to someone who has absolutely no clue what you're going through. You just couldn't relate to this person. With Vinny, you can relate to them. Okay. Like I personally am not a believer in the sports psychologist role, but a mental performance coach is a completely different thing. We have a skating coach, we have a skills coach. Why wouldn't people value mental performance? And there are some NHL general managers who do, which is why Vinny, does what he does. He also works for USA Hockey. Like, again, everybody wants a piece of this guy. So it's great that we were able to have him on today. And again, we're going to go all over the place. We'll definitely ask him about the Oilers, ask him about, stuff he did with the Blackhawks and like how the role evolves, but then also just kind of talk to him about his own playing experience and what does mental performance mean, right? Like, I feel like it's a catchy buzzword. So, obviously there's no game till Wednesday night. As we get closer to the games, we're going to get more into them, right?
Jeremiah had a funny comment just now too about that.
I didn't see
Jeremiah
it.
said I could hitchhike to Edmonton before these games start.
Exactly. Like we're all sitting here like, when is this ever going to start? So I think you're going to read him in with a sponsor, Jonny, and then make sure you say good morning and hello to him and be an adult. And then we'll get to it with our friend Vinny Malts.
So before we bring Vinny on, just a quick word from our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And when you see Vinny, you'll think he's actually a Proraso model because this guy probably has the best head of hair that I've ever seen. So it is perfect that we're bringing you in with that read. But first of all, good morning, Vinny, and welcome to the show. We're happy to have you on, and we've been hoping this would work for quite some time.
Whoa, there's a big echo.
Oh, yeah.
You hear that?
Yo, echo.
Let me see if I can fix that if it's on
No,
my
I
end.
think we're good. It went away. It was Johnny's fault. It normally is, Vinny.
My
How
fault.
are you this morning, pal?
Good morning, boys. I'm good. I get to hang out with you guys, so even better right now.
So, I have so many different things that I want to talk to you about, but because the Edmonton Oilers are about to start a Stanley Cup journey here in the finals, could you just start by telling us about your role with the Edmonton Oilers? Again, it's like the least interesting part of what you do to me, but I do think people would probably find it interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, I can't go super deep in. You guys know the deal and all that fun stuff. But yeah, no, it's basically doing the mental performance and player development, helping out with the prospects that are coming up. The guys that are, from the draft picks, to the American League guys, to guys that, as they go up and down. Similar to Chicago, of like in that way. So it's being able to work with them, understanding their mental performance piece, how they're perceiving the game, how they're professionalizing the consistency of their thought process, things of that nature, and helping them from a leadership standpoint too, of just, how do you plan on developing your process so you understand your role better, you can communicate with the coaches better, things of that nature. And then obviously, again, as a pro, it's how can I stay consistent at what I know is my game and my role and to serve the organization best, right? So that's in a nutshell, right? A lot of what, with all kinds of different ways, but that's in a nutshell, man. What the
when you're working with the pro guys, Vinny, at the top levels, the NHL, the AHL, even the college players are basically pros at this point. What would you say is the most? I guess the word interesting is probably not the right word, but the most general topic or the most general thing that you're working on with players, because I do think, and I don't know if you heard me say this, like, I think we have these like buzzwords surrounding the industry or the lane that you're in and the role that you serve. And I always like to ask, like, well, what does mental performance mean? Or what does being mentally strong or mentally tough, like, what do these things actually mean to somebody like you who lives and breathes this and physically works with players on this at every level of hockey every single day?
Yeah, no, great question. So it's a couple of things, right? The first one is, we always say to our players or anybody, right? Yeah, that your thought process will never be faster than your belief system. So it's always fascinating to watch, as a common denominator is, number one, believing in your own voice, right? Believing in your own thought process. Like, that's a big thing you deal with, especially when players are younger, is that they have so much belief in what they think about their process that they can actually, number one, execute it when they're playing. Like, they know, like, this is the best way that I've perceived, that I need to play my role consistently and be out there. This is what I believe in my mind matters. But then it's the ability to take what you have in your mind as a belief and then to share it with others. that's the other part that's really fascinating about it, is that it's one thing, a big misconception a lot of people have about mental performance is they think it's just an individual thing. And again, this is the interpretation, right, that I take on with it, is that they think it's just a mental thing that you need to take care of for yourself. In hockey, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, you have to put on your mask first, just like, being on an airplane, right? Put on your mask first. But then as soon as you put your mask on, you have to help others. And so that's the part that I've noticed with mental performance is you're doing the work for yourself to know your belief system, to understand, okay, here's how I interpret information. Here's the perception I'm taking in. But then once I get really good at understanding myself, now it's time to share. Now it's, can I go to the coach and talk about what I'm thinking? Can I go to my line mates and express what I'm thinking in this situation? So it's a lot of that interpretation is the common part. Colby, when you bring that up, that's the biggest challenge that I see is that people don't realize you're getting to the core of your belief system, believing in the voice that you have and knowing, okay, this is mentally how I'm perceiving it. And I know this is the truth. And then being able to share that, which is the harder part, collectively with others that are participating with you. And that's the part that I love the most about it is that it's not just an individual thing. It's a collective thing. It's a family thing. It's a team thing that when you get good at understanding and believing in your own process, when you can share it with others, that's the strength, man. That's the beauty part of the process.
And Vinny, even with that, I don't mean to go on like a side tangent here, but
Go for it.
You can almost tell something different is going on with the Oilers this time around than maybe last year. So even with, all the tricks and secrets that you might have been able to give them mentally, like going through it and actually experiencing things, like does that still bring so much value to actually then tricking your own brain into thinking things are different? Like, Brad Marchand said after I think the third round, like there's a difference between a big game and a big moment. And I found that so interesting, right? Because like, he's played in plenty of big game sevens, but it's just a game seven. It's just a big game. It's just a big moment. It's not like the end all be all game. And I think he was saying that in regards to other teams and how they might let a moment take over a game. And that was the first time I had heard that. And I found that super interesting. But like, it seems like the Oilers right now are very business-like, and they're not letting the moment be too much for them.
Yeah, you think about it, what Marshall was talking about there, right? Of like, if you guys think about it, it's, if you want to get nerdy, it's the arousal theory. What happens is any one of us can relate to the emotional aspect of how our state of mind, we get upset with our kids, we get upset with somebody at work, right? We get upset with somebody and we have this emotional response. And then we want to take it back. Oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, right? So what he's pointing out there is that there's these moments that come up. And can you still be in that moment and be businesslike and know, all right, I've been here before, to your point, right? When you have experience, like I've dealt with this situation before. And now that I've gone through this moment, I'm now prepared to handle another moment that could potentially be as big, right? It's hard to get to those places. But now that you've experienced it, you can, when you reflect back on it, you can handle it a lot better. That's why experience matters so much. So that combination of, number one, exposure to those moments, like you have to go through these high level moments, but then it's recognizing from a mental performance end is that emotional piece, that arousal that happens in every single one of us at the high pressure moments, high pressure levels. And to your point, right, with the shootout and all that.
Yeah.
It's all the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
That we're all dealing with. People don't recognize, like, most people can relate, and most of your listeners can relate to, how many times did you mess up? Did you, you shouldn't have said that, and because you did, you got fired, or now you're backtracking and it's taking months to break the trust that you built up with somebody else. So that emotional thing that happened, that's such a major part of mental performance, is that, are you able to recognize that the arousal that it's creating in you, that you're not letting that state of mind overtake the situation at hand of what's happening? And that's what happens with experience, is the more and more you experience big moments in your life, and whatever that is, and you get exposure to that, easier and easier it is to deal with, right? That's why you see a lot of stud young players are the ones that keep on moving up, because emotionally they almost get desensitized to a lot of the, I'm at this camp where I've got to make the team and what's going to happen. They've been going through the process for so long that the emotion of it, go out there, take care of business, get my game done, play my game, versus another player who hasn't had as much exposure to those big moments it's harder for them to come into those situations, whether it's USHL, college, pro. It's all the same energy, that emotional, like, oh my God, I haven't been here before, versus when you just get more used to it. You get that desensitized, but a lot of it is that emotional control. It's that ability to recognize, like, my emotions are going to get to me. We all know, like, fans are screaming, things are happening, emotions are going to get to you. But do you have the ability to recognize, cool, I like that I'm feeling the emotions, but they're not about to overtake what I need to do in this moment.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I was like Colby before. Yeah.
It's huge, man. It's huge.
Yeah.
People don't realize, like, that is a big, and Colby, to your point, that is when people think of mental performance, they think it's like, I'm messed up and there's something going on. It's like every one of us has crazy emotions that we wish, man, I wish I didn't say that. Man, I wish I didn't do that. That makes you messed up? No.
That's my whole life. That's my whole life. You know that very well about me.
You've grown so much. You've matured so much.
Well, when you start at the bottom, there's only one place to go, right?
Exactly.
Well,
Kids
hold
will do that.
You said some interesting things, and then we got an interesting comment in the chat from Ice Clubs, who's one of our. He's frequently here. Actually, he's here every day with us. You know, Vinny, we have a live chat function on our show. And they drive a lot of our show, right? And sometimes they're all just taking shots at each other, but sometimes they also, and I said, throw some questions in here for some things you want to know about from Vinny. And one of the questions is about Pete DeBoer making what a lot of people perceived as a panic move to pull Jake Ottinger out of the net. And, then Vic messaged me, our producer, and said, you should ask him if he works with coaches as well. So I will tell you this. There were numerous times this past season when I was coaching, when I was just curious about something, about picking Vinny's brain, and I would call him and say, I'm trying to get through to a player, or what's the best way to get this, this type of function from the team, from the guy, like, because, a lot of the ways coaches did things with us when we played, it was fear tactics and like, kids are just very different now. That type of stuff doesn't work. So I do know that, I don't know if you work with any coaches at the pro level, the college level. I know you help me with that stuff all the time. And I know that, I'm always constantly trying to say to guys, hey, this is somebody that I know and I trust because he's a former player. But in that Pete DeBoer situation, right, we're talking about a guy who has been through everything behind the bench. Yeah. Going back to the 08, this was a guy who has been a head coach in the NHL since 08, was a coach in the OHL years and years before that, won championships in the OHL, won a championship even as a player, I think, in the IHL back in the day. So the guy has seen a lot of different things. And I heard Brian Burke say on the sheet last week that he thought it was panicked, and he thought that the assistant coaches didn't do a good enough job of reining Pete DeBoer in. Personally, I don't buy that because I know Pete DeBoer, and I don't think that guy has a panic gene. But that is an interesting point, Vinny, in a situation like that. Like, no matter how experienced he may be, like, does that sometimes get the best of you in a moment like that? And our coaches, like, I would make the argument that coaches need mental performance as much as players do.
Oh, yeah, big time. And to answer the point, work with coaches, from pro level, college level, all that type of stuff, and have helped through the years. And you're 100% spot on, Colby. That's one of the things, right, that we're doing with Roger Nielsen, right, of coming back and being able to basically, we're coaching coaches and working with them through that process. So I'm excited about that project and being able to help out Marshall Starkman and getting that going. But to your point, that's the biggest part of leaders, are the ones who are dealing with it the most, right? And so it's a great example what happened with DeBoer, right? Of that. So you look at the idea and the concept that a lot of people can relate to is loss aversion, economic principle, right? It's been proven that people hate to lose $1,000 more than they love to win, right? As an example. So when you look at positive psychology, it says you need 4 to 5 to 1 ratio. You need 4 to 5 to 1 positive comments to offset 1 negative, right? That's just the way the mind will work. So if you take that together, in essence, to make it relatable, it's like you need to win $4,000 or $5,000 to offset the $1,000 loss. So you take it into human emotion. It's similar in nature, right? Of where the situation DeBoer is in, there's so much, and I'm always sensitive to the coaches in this end because, number one, when you're losing, we hate to lose. So when you're in that situation and emotional, no matter how much experience he has, and I also heard that comment, about how the assistant coaches should have come over. Culturally, we know in the moment, it's easy to look back on it and say what's happening. But when you're really in a negative state in the moment and you're in it and you're upset, we all know it as a player, as a coach, as a human being, the fans, the whole nine, and it's coming down on you. I don't care who you are, that spiritual sense that's going on, you're feeling it no matter what. So a lot of what happened in that moment was, you can say that I don't think he has emotional reaction, but at the end of the day, there was definitely something going on inside of him that he felt he needed to use his words after the game, and to put that back on in that way of like, you don't, to be able to say something like that after the game, you're heated up, right? Like that's not for him, there's no doubt in my mind, there's going to be a part of him that wishes he didn't say that. He's going to look back and go, I wish I didn't say that. But publicly, the problem is in those situations that we talk about, this is what we said earlier. When you make a comment like that publicly now, and then what happens, right? This is the part that we don't know. And then what's going to be the consequences, we don't know. Organizationally, it may work itself out. It's okay. I get it. We were heated. We'll figure it out when the season starts. Let the summer go. We're all going to relax a little bit. It's all going to work itself out. Or is it, you know what? I'm really mad at you now. I'm pissed at you. And you can't take it back. Like now I'm just going to be upset with you. And that's going to, spread it like a cancer inside the team. And the veterans are going to be upset about it. And it's like, you put yourself above us. These are the kinds of things that a lot of people, publicly, that's hard to tell is that, of course, publicly we're there, to say things and what we think as Monday morning quarterbacks and all that.
Yeah.
You're in it. It is super hard to manage in the moment. Like to your point, guys, right? It's like, okay, let's say working with DeBoer and hey, to be able to get him in that moment to say that, number one, you have to get to that moment. Like in every other moment, you're fine. But when you're right there, you're on the cusp, right there to go to the finals. That is something that's such a unique thing that you can't go mentally preparing for it and going like, oh, I'm going to work on myself. Like you still have to get there. Like that's why there's players that are very good in season and not very good in the playoffs. They're just not killers like that. They're amazing in season. They can do all kinds of stuff. But as soon as it comes down to being on the line, that's a different mindset. Like that's a playoff mindset. It's like, okay, now I'm going to do whatever is necessary to win. So those are the things that are challenging guys in those situations where we can sit and judge a human being for being that way. But they're like these one-off things of where I guarantee you he looks back on that and he wishes he didn't do it. But it's also like he did do it because a bunch of people saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. It's like, how do you know that? How do you know what you should and shouldn't do when you never lived it? You were never in that situation. And again, emotions, that's the driving force, man. It's so much of it is he thinking about that before the game and going like, all right, let me prepare myself of don't say anything crazy because we have to come back next season and coach. Like, don't say anything crazy. Like, is he doing the work beforehand to think about that? Moving forward, he might be.
So the biggest takeaway I just took from all that before Johnny asked his question is that Johnny and Austin Matthews both do not like big game moments. That's the biggest. That's the biggest takeaway that I just took away from all the brilliant, dialect that you just gave us. Johnny and Austin Matthews are a lot more alike than I thought, except Johnny has a better hairline. And Austin Matthews has a lot more zeros on his bank account.
That's true. That's true. But even with that, like to what you were saying, Vinny, like as far as coaches go, like I remember the first mental performance coach I worked with was in college. I was introduced to Mark Randall, who Coach Carvel brought in at UMass. I don't know if you know him at all. We called him Luther. But he talked about just taking a mental reset. Like every practice, like there'd be a moment where either us as players were too worked up or even Carv himself was too worked up. And he'd literally call out like, everyone stop in your position, breathe for 45 seconds, and then we'll get back to practice. Like, and it was just like a little triggering thing that like no one ever thought about. No one ever knew that really just changed the course of direction for that day. And the first time we did it, I'll never forget, like Carv actually like screamed at us. And then he was like, all right, let's take a mental and like, it did actually work. Like everyone was kind of on edge, and then you felt the next drill. It was just some sort of, it was the first time I think us as players, like truly trusted it because none of us had worked with a player performance coach at that time. So like you're almost questioning it. You're wondering if it actually works or if it's all kind of bullshit. And right from that, it was probably like the third or fourth practice of the year, like we felt it. So I'm sure, you might deal with that too. And we were talking about credibility a little bit before you got on, but I'm sure, you've walked into some rooms and people are like, oh, like, this is bullshit. Like this doesn't work. Right. Like I'm sure you deal with that all the time. So how do you get players to buy in? Is there anything you actually do that was tangible, like what I experienced?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, like Colby said, right, the biggest thing is like having that credibility with the players, being able to skate like that. I haven't seen anything faster of being able to show the guys like, hey, he's one of us.
Yeah.
Getting in the gym with them, being on the ice with them, like showing them like, oh, it's one of us, right? Versus you're in a room with a bunch of players, like they know, okay, you do that, but they don't really see you in the element. They're so used to, all right, can you be on the ice? Can you hang? Can you do all that stuff? Like when you're in that mode, I tell people all the time, like I've had some of the best conversations in that 2 to 3 minute span on the ice with a player, right? Where it's like, it's not a lot of time, but just because of like, you're having that interaction live when you're in it, it's amazing how quickly something can shift in a player. So, to your point, Johnny, with that part is it's being able to recognize that what you were experiencing is what's called a pattern interrupt. And that's exactly what mindset performance or mental performance is that can I mentally go to a place and go, oh, right now, the reason why I'm doing that in the moment, I'm stopping myself and I'm resetting is because it's pausing my mind from continuing on to keep going down that rabbit hole, right? Like if I just keep driving and I don't stop to see, whoa, there was a sign right there. Oh man, I had to make a right. Well, that feeling you get of like where you almost missed the turn and then you kind of got scared, but then you caught it and you got it. Well, as soon as you caught it and you got it, you relaxed and you kind of dialed back in on that road. So it's kind of similar of, throughout the game, throughout the performance, it's being able to stop that mechanism of, oh man, I stink. I'm not, we're out of it, blah, blah. Or you're so negative. And then you just reset, you pattern interrupt and go, wait, I have control over this. Wait, I'm doing this in my own brain, like my own perspective. So at the time, you guys may have not dove into that as far to understand what was happening in the mechanism. But really what was happening was it was pausing you. And it just kind of like was a stop sign. It made you stop, look both ways first, and then keep driving. So it's so powerful that think about how many times in normal day-to-day life, right? If you could have stopped while yelling at your kids or you're with your family or you're at work, if you could have just, as you were going, paused for literally 10 seconds and noticed you paused and you'd be shocked at where you would go the next 10, 30, 40, 50 seconds, minute. You'd be shocked at how being able to like stop, pause, and then keep moving forward would literally change the dynamic of that conversation, that situation.
And so off topic, but I'll just share like one thing too. Like I always, and this is so common now in like our world, but I see so many online battles and we're guilty of it, right? We get in online battles from time to time. There is probably 2 or 3 times a day. Yeah, Kobe does it all the time. There's probably 2 or 3 times a day where like, I'll see someone say something on Twitter, maybe it's at me or whatever, like shit talking me, and I'll type it out just to get my anger out there and then just delete the whole thing and not like post it.
Me too.
Yeah. It feels so good. It's so therapeutic.
But I don't usually do that with hockey. That's more with all of the like anti-Semitism and all the more of the geopolitical stuff. The amount of times I write a tweet and then don't send it with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
A lot of it is for fear. I'll be straight honest with you. A lot of it is because I don't want to. I like what I do for ESPN, and I like doing the Frozen Four. So it is true though, and I do that too. Vinny, we had a question in the chat from Glenn, who obviously very well, commissioner of the USHL, president of the Atlantic. Exactly. He asked a question about the pressure that parents are putting. And I'm going to read this for people that are audio only, and then we'll let Vinny jump into this here. But he wants to know about a young player, about 16 to 20 years old, mental performance, and how is that impacted by parental anxiety and pressure? How much time do you spend with a player's parents? And like, I think that this is so important, Vinny. And, you're going to be, having sessions with me as my kids start to get older and play hockey. And
Tennis, I thought.
You and I were talking on the phone yesterday after your little guy just played in his hockey tournament, and I saw the picture with Marissa with the trophy, and I'm like literally having flashbacks, and I'm like, this got to be so cool for him. But how important is that? Because like I coach at the junior level, and like, I know the parents have a lot to say, and they all know more, and they know more than I know, and they know more than the other coaches know, and everything like that. But for the most part, really didn't have to talk to any parents this year unless I wanted to, which is really cool. Unless it was a very positive experience, like a kid committing to a college or, working with a parent on SATs or something like that. Had to have very little conversations about actual hockey stuff that I didn't choose to have. But for my friends that coach at the youth levels, and like Danny Howard is a great example, a guy you and I know both really, really well, who coaches at the Titans U18 team, and he works with like they have to deal with parents, and these parents have a lot of them want it more than their children, and so that is a huge piece, and I feel like it's only gotten worse. And so it's a great question from Glenn, but I'm wondering, like, with players that you work for, and obviously not asking you for any names, but are you working with their parents? How do you communicate sort of like what you're doing with the player to like how you're communicating with the parent and where their role fits in with all of these types of, pressures? Because every parent thinks their kid's going to the NHL, and 99.99% of them are wrong.
Yeah, no doubt. No, great question, Glenn. On that side, it's to your point, Colby, right? It's funny how I evolved as a coach, right? So when I was coaching juniors, I was in the same boat, guys. Like literally, when I was coaching, I would literally go out the back door to go out the rink and park my car behind by the Zamboni, so I could literally just go out and leave, so I wouldn't have to go through the front to see any kind of parents, whether it was like midget coaching, like. It was crazy, and it was just lack of maturity at the time. But that was the avoiding it. Now, to your point, now when working with players inside of that junior age and that stage of the progression, it might even be college, now I'm a big proponent of talking to the parents. Because the reality is the circle of influence, nobody's going to be a greater piece of influence than your parents. I still have pro guys that are talking to their dad right after the game.
Yeah.
They're getting on the phone and talking right away, right? So
those are pro. You're saying those are American, like NHL, American League pro players.
Pro players that this is happening, right? So it's completely normal, and that's the thing, right? Like your reaction, wow, like you think it's like crazy, but in today's world, what's happened, guys, right, is that back in the day, it may have been looked at as, the coaches had all the respect. You listen to your coach, you do what your coach says, right? But then fast forward to the last 10, 15, 20 years, things have changed. Social media, parents have so much information now that's out there. They have so many opportunities. Oh, there's 1,000 different summer teams I should play on. Oh, rankings matter. Oh, I got to get drafted. I got to get committed. There's all this pressure now that's come on that we didn't grow up with at all.
No, we didn't think about any of these.
No, not
there
at
was
all.
No, we got to get committed. There was no draft list. There was no
none of that.
My Hockey rankings. None of it existed. We just went to Iceline. We played our game. In the summer, we went to the Atlantic District camp. We played it. There was the select team, like the East Coast Selects, all those years back in the day. Like, that was it. That was it. There was none of this. No typing.
Nothing, guys. So like you even look at the history of like, all right, how to spread propaganda or anything like that. It's just overload the system. Just whatever, if it's true, false, it doesn't matter. Just overload the system. And that's a good analogy to talk about how like what's happened with parents is that the system is overloaded. Like, how do you really know what's best for your kid in today's game? So it's completely normal, the reaction that they're having, to not trust, to not know, because frankly, the reality is there isn't a lot of leaders, like statistically speaking, there isn't a lot of leaders that can actually handle what's going on. Like you have a lot of charlatans out there. Like we know that. Like there's a lot of different that'll promise you the world and, oh, I can get you to Division I, I can get you here, I can get you there. And it's like the kid is not even close. Like that kid, like not even a chance to play D3 or anything like that. Like you can see players that don't even have that. And you've got these people that are promising and saying, oh, you come to us and we'll give you that. It's
Just
ridiculous.
Pay us $3,000 a month and we'll be your agent.
10,000, like all this craziness. Like it's bananas. So that's the hardest part that's changed, is because there's so much information. We all know, guys, you're in the same business of like storytelling. Like you hear a narrative, you hear a story. It's the way the mind is wired naturally. It's like breathing. I always say, storytelling is to mindset performance. That's what small area games is to hockey performance. What do I mean by that? It's like breathing. Like your mental performance is all based off of the story and the narrative that's in there. So the narrative that's out there now, with the amount of information, with the amount of things that are going on, it is really challenging for parents to navigate it on their own. To your point, Colby and John, what you guys saying, when you don't know what it is, when you don't know, all the different turns and the different forests and the jungles you're going to be a part of, when you don't actually know it and you're trying to decipher it without no knowledge, it's literally mission impossible. It's mission impossible. Like that's why I call it bloodline of like, if you don't have that big brother, big sister, that big person, like somebody that went through it, right? That knows how to navigate the terrain, it is super hard. So, talking to parents is a massive part now that I've adapted and evolved in my own process. Is you got to talk to them. The ones that really struggle, I've sat a couple hours. Like I remember the longest one I ever had was like 2.5 hours with a parent to help walk them through. And it still didn't always work. You still have plenty of parents that just still, no matter how much you tell them, they don't get it. They don't understand it, but you do your best to help them. But it's a big part of the process now.
Has a crazy parent ever fired you because you didn't tell them what they wanted to hear?
Oh yeah. 100%. 100%. Who do I need to pay around here? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay.
No one. You don't that if you're worried about who I need to pay around here, you're in a lot. You are in a lot of trouble. And this is what I constantly tell people. If you are really good, they will come and find you. There's no secrets anymore. How did they used to do it? Like, here's little old me playing at Iceline for the junior Flyers, and yet somehow people got themselves out to Iceline, and then here comes the phone call from John St. Pierre and Travis, come to our tryout. We're 8th graders at the time. And then all of a sudden you get seen by Shel Samuelson and John Riley and those types of people over in Voorhees. And then like they come and they find you. And it's like, you'll laugh at this. I'm sitting down the shore a couple summers back, and I'm with my family, my in-laws, and we're all having a really, really nice time. And there's a hockey family there. And the ladies had a couple of drinks. And she said, well, the only people who make it in hockey are the people that know people. Now, granted, she has adult sons that are somewhere between my age and your age, Vinny. And of course, they were nice youth hockey players, but they never made it anywhere in hockey. And she said that to me, and I just about fell out of my chair because I'm sitting here going, I don't know. I grew up in Villanova, PA, and I don't think there's ever been a hockey player that came out of Villanova, PA. And my dad was an architect and a builder, and he didn't know anybody. Granted, I went to Roger Nielsen's camp as a kid. He developed relationships, and somehow I found my way to be you. And it wasn't because of who my dad was. It wasn't because who we knew. And I thought that was really funny. Like to hear that statement, it definitely took me back. I mean, this is probably like 4 or 5 years ago or whatever. And
you nailed it. That's why I fell in love with the performance space versus pay to play versus performance-based hockey, right? Like performance-based is like what people think it is. Yeah. Could a door get opened up to a tryout all day long? It's so easy. Like some of these tryouts, right? Even at times junior leagues, right? To get drafted in the later rounds, like it can open up doors in that way. But as far as making the team, as far as like being on the team and like you're actually in it at the higher levels, forget it. Not, like stop. Like it's performance-based. Look at the coups that have happened on teams in major junior where, the one coach, his kid was playing and the boys' kid, they're like, no way. Like you get all these scenarios of like, it's not going to work. Like if you're not good enough and you can't perform at the level, it's not that you won't get the opportunity for people to recognize. It's literally everybody around you, right? Everyone that's watching goes, you don't belong. They will eat you alive. And that's the greater pressure of it. And that's what I love about the higher levels is like, if you're not good, you're going to get exposed, right? I always bring up, you can't fake action. You can't fake your way when you're there. Like you can't think, I'm going to be a fraud out here and no one's going to be able to tell. Everyone's going to be able to tell. Like if you don't walk in that room and you don't have confidence and you don't know I belong here, you are done, instantly done, instantly. And people just, because they can't, they're not exposed to that level, they don't understand the truth of that statement. And again, without doing the work to get there, and right, you guys, how you've grinded, to get to this point, it's being able to do these things. It takes that exposure of failing again and again and being there and thinking you're a fraud to then eventually getting up and being like, wow, like, all right, I'm looking around and going like, I must be good if this is who wants to deal with me and who wants to talk to me. Like, clearly I must be doing something right. Like I point out to people all the time, it's more the people that are legit look around and go, how did I get into this room? And then you can't help but go like, I must be that good. Like that's really the reality of it.
See, like I wish I knew you 10 years ago, because that was always my biggest thing. Like I'm almost triggered a little bit, honestly, because I feel like that's where my career went. Well, yeah, but that's where my career went south. Like I've talked about it on here, Vinny. Like I was cut from AAA teams till 9th grade. So 9th grade was my first year of AAA, and then like that's when I started to get better. My parents, we didn't know what junior hockey was. Like I didn't really go on recruiting trips. Like I was, a late bloomer. I didn't get good at hockey till I was like I was always good, but like I played AA. So like 16, 17 rolled around. Everyone else is committing to D1 schools, and like I was, that late guy. And I got cut from the USHL 2 years in a row, and I played in the North American League, and then
that's why Glenn brought him out to Sioux Falls for that thing. He finally got his day in the USHL after all these years.
Well, that was the original premise of what we were doing, and then it worked out that Ethan was winning the Gaudreau Awards, so we made it into a whole thing. But for me, like when I stepped in the door at UMass my first day, like I didn't feel like I necessarily belonged. And then out of the 6-week training camp leading into the season, like I was put on the second line, and I literally thought I'd go to UMass my freshman year, maybe play 5 games and try to earn my way sophomore, junior, senior year. But the fact that I played freshman year, like mentally fucked me up a little bit, because, I kind of went in expecting not to play. Then I got a taste of it, and it became like a drug, right? Once you play and you see a little bit of success, that's all you crave. But then that little bit of success, throughout the season, it kind of goes away without consistency. And I just like couldn't tell if I was a good enough player or not. And my whole playing career was just like a mental battle. So like for me, I was seeing a sports psychiatrist. Like this stuff, I have experienced it firsthand. And like, I'm telling you, if I were a 16-year-old kid right now, I wish I had you, because my mom is probably listening right now. My dad's probably listening, and like, they know it. Like my dad used to have to get in the car with me and be like, you're out there with Charlie McAvoy and Sonny Milano. Like you can play with them. And I was like, oh, but Dad, they're so much better than me. Like that was that was just what I would say. Like that's what I was as a kid.
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. And that's the point, right? Of when people make arguments about, players and going and doing these events in the summer when they're younger and all that stuff. That's what happens. That's what we were talking about earlier, that desensitization, I guess. Yeah, whatever. I'm trying to sort that out.
We mess up words all the time.
Yeah, you guys know it's something like that. But it's that reality of, you calm down the more and more you're around and you're exposed to that level and you're around other players, it relaxes the nervous system, literally, right? Like this is neuroscience. Like this is all part of the psychological process of, oh, okay, I can relax, I can breathe. And the more years I spend around these high level talented people, easier and easier it gets when I get older. So to your point, when you get thrown in, because I was in a very similar boat, right? I go, I'm playing, out of nowhere, my game takes off. I get, picked up by Hull Olympics. I go there, I get drafted by Vancouver. Everything was happening like a whirlwind so fast. Well, then, bam, I go back the next season. I get hurt. My ankle gets busted, right? Tearing ligaments, all this stuff, right? That ended up tendons. Boom. Now I'm done for the rest of the season. Need to get surgery. And when I go back to main camp for Vancouver, I'm out there on the line. I'll never forget this. To your point, John, I'm on the line, with Mark Messier, looking up and going like, why am I out here?
Yeah.
Literally, I'll never forget thinking in my mind, like, I don't belong out here.
Yeah.
But there was nobody there to like tell you, like, hey, relax, dude. It's going to take a couple of years of development. It's going to, number one, it's Mark Messier. Like, dude, it's going to take a while to like adjust and learn the pro game. So don't worry about that. Right. But to your point, you get into this mode of like that you get frozen. And because of that, now your brain, right? Einstein, right? Imagination is more important than knowledge. That's what he meant. Your imagination takes over more than the actual knowledge of, oh, wait a second, I am good enough. I do belong here. Like, look, my game is there. But because my imagination takes over, oh, I don't belong here, I don't do that. That's why it's more powerful. Because literally our imaginations, that's the thing that just messes with so many of us. And again, without that exposure, without that experience, it's exactly what it can cost you. Or without having the influence of somebody you have around you to keep you grounded, right? I work, I have my coach, right, that I work with, Dr. Jeff Spencer. Like, I work with him to help me to make sure I'm staying aligned all the time in that way. Why? Because it's the same idea. Like, it's hard to manage when you're dealing with high performance all the time and you're stressed. I got family, I got work, I got all kinds of things going on that I'm working through. That, to your point, it's like not having the exposure of that much in life and not knowing, like, all right, what is this going to lead into? Like, how do you manage all this? That's hard unless you have somebody else that can, like, no, it's normal what you're doing. It's normal what you're thinking. Like, yep, these are the things you have to make sure of. Like, one of the biggest lessons I take from him all the time is, hey, Vinny, there's going to be 3 to 5 times a year where just don't blow yourself up. That's it. Like, 3 to 5 times a year, you're going to be crazy stressed. As long as we can manage those waves that happen, those rhythms that happen through the year, and you get through them, you're going to be golden. And that's high performance in a nutshell. Like, but that exposure to a voice, a reason that can kind of walk you through and help you guys, right? That's the hardest part, right? Is trusting somebody else when I don't have the experience, when I don't understand what it's like. That's no man's land. That's so hard.
Yeah. The last area that I want to dive in with you, because, again, we put this like big, beautiful outline together of things to talk to you about. And obviously it's gone in way different directions, which is totally honest. But that's what's great about this show. We don't have commercials. We don't have to like hit any breaks or whatever. But, and I know there's been a lot of really, really good comments in the chat. And before we're done, we'll tell people where they can find Vinny, as far as like, if you want to write him an email, you have questions, you want to hit him on social media. Like, he posts a lot of videos, especially on Instagram. I don't think you're super active on Twitter, are you? I think it's just Instagram,
my stuff. I'll just like things I want to like.
Exactly. But I want to talk to you about injury and mental performance within injuries, because, getting injured is such a unfortunate big part of playing any high level sport. It does not matter what it is. The French Open is on right now, and you watch these players out there by themselves having an injury and trying to fight through it. And there used to be this whole just, suck it up and get back out there mentality. And now we've kind of gone to a little bit more like where guys aren't afraid to say that they're injured. And then you still have, there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. Like, it's a whole thing, right? But when a player does get injured and has a lengthy injury, what you do becomes really important. As somebody who had to rehab back almost 4 years in a row after my second year pro, every summer I spent, first summer was one hip, then I had groin surgery, then I got through a season, had to redo my groin surgery. Like, Mike Boyle and I and his team of massage people and physical therapists and you name it. Like, it was Groundhog Day for me, to a point where now, Vinny, even as a 36-year-old, like, I don't even want to go to a doctor anymore. I get so many issues with my back and my hips, and like, I don't know how I'm getting through checking for charity, but I'll figure it out. I already started the training. I got the little bands, and I've been walking around the house with bands.
Bands are the worst. Get the
glutes and the adductors firing again, just to see if I can do it. But like, that process is so challenging for a hockey player. Look at Matthias Ekholm. That guy has been working his way back for months, and now he's playing. Plays the last game in the conference final. Now he's going to play in the NHL. What is the best way to tackle coming back from an injury? And it doesn't even just have to be for high-level hockey people. We may have high-level hockey fans in our chat right now that have to have back surgery or ankle surgery or knee surgery. What light can you shed on that for us, Vinny? Go ahead, Johnny, if you want.
I just want to add one thing to that too. I think what's a problem with hockey as well is that when guys are injured, they don't feel like they're a part of the team. They're not always with the team. They're not always traveling with the team. And I think that's where it takes the mental toll. And I see it even, covering, being in the media, guys that are injured aren't even made available to the media. They're just like not around. And that could even be so hard, right? It's just like little thing. I know guys don't like care about media, but I'm saying like a little thing like that, we don't get to talk to them or hear about their injury, or they can't like even talk to us about what they're going through for months.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that part.
No, for sure. And John, to your point, right? Like there's been an unreal study. I think Harvard's been doing it for the last like 75, 80 years has been going on, right? About the top 10 things on longevity for a human being. And it's number 1 and 2. Number 1 is the amount of friends that you have. And number 2, the amount of deep, meaningful relationships you have. So what does that tell us? And if exercise, eating right, all that stuff, right? That's not at the top of the list. What does that tell us? We're social creatures. So to your point, when we get injured and we're not a part of the normal social aspect of the team, that's the whole point, right? We know the boys, like that's the whole point of being on the team, is feeling like you're contributing, you're bringing value, like that's what your identity is tied to. So when it gets boom, cut off, that is huge. So when you're injured, that's one of the hardest things to manage. And we'll talk to players all the time about stay around the team. And we know at the same time, stay around the team, it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard, but it's better off than being away from it. Or there might be times where if they notice it's too much, then maybe it's, maybe you do need to take a break, take a day away from the team, right? It's like, hey, get some time on your own and then come back, right? Because it's overwhelming because you want to be out there so badly. So there's different strategies that you work through. But going to your point of, the biggest thing that's really challenging, and this is something that I went through for myself that I didn't realize until I got older, that I wish I had a better understanding of the human body and how it works. But fundamentally what happens is when you get injured, you lose trust in your body. And this is a big misconception people have about mental performance and everything like that, right? When a player goes for the first time and trains in the gym that summer, they come back the next year and are like, wow, I have all this confidence.
Yeah.
Right. Because
if you took care of business in the summer, that first couple of months of the season, you are flying above the clouds because you put the work in and you feel such confidence because you're like, I'm in as good a shape as I've ever been in. And it's
preparing for a test.
That is something that I can 100% relate to, Vinny, because man, what you did. You can lie and lie and lie, but you deep down know what you did for those 3 to 5 months of your off season when September 10th rolls around and you're reporting for whatever level of training camp you're going to.
Exactly. Nailed it. Right. And that's the part that happens when we get injured is that knowing, right? That's the big, so we always say like, know the process is greater than trust the process. If you know your body inside out, you can go perform. When you have that feeling of knowing, boom, you trust yourself, right? Psychological safety, rule number 1, trust. Do I trust this team? Do I trust this coach? Do I trust the scenario that I'm in? But what happens is a big misconception people have when it comes to the psychological aspect is, but do I have trust in my body? And that's another form of trust that anyone who's trained knows, like, wow, when I feel good, I have confidence. Well, it's great that you have this confidence now and you feel like you can do it, but do you know how to think the game? Do you know your role? These are the things that when you go to the level of high performance is that it changes the dynamic of the situation, right? So with injuries, it's the same thing, is that you lose trust in your body and you're working through the rehab, you're working through this stuff. And so I remember when I was younger, it was amazing how much it would mess with me that when I would get injured, I was chasing this thing of feeling like 100%. Oh, I don't feel 100% yet. It was just, I'm not there yet. And really what it wasn't that I was chasing the 100% feeling. It was, I didn't trust my body to be able to do what I needed to go do yet. I didn't like have this like, okay, I know I can go do it. I had this sense, right? Versus now, as I'm older, I'm like, oh, now I get it. Like, all right, something happens, my shoulder in the gym, and I can't get under the squat bar. Cool. Keep working out, keep training. 9 months later, oh, look at that. I can get back under the bar again. These are the kinds of things that now, as I get older, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep going, keep moving, and keep figuring it out. Like we tell the boys all the time is that 80%, right? As long as you're feeling 80% most of the season, you're good. You know that 100% feeling? Say bye-bye to it. Anyone who's a high performer at anything, you're not looking to be 100%. Maybe when the off season comes, you'll get back to that feeling of feeling 100% again. But it depends on where you are. Do you have a family? Do you have other things, whatever commitments? But the reality is, as a player, as a performer, say bye-bye to that 100% feeling. It's gone. You're managing 80 to 85, maybe even 90 at one point, but then you're right back into that 80, 85 percentage that if you can play at that level, you're good. So your point, Colby, from an injury standpoint, it's understanding that trust factor. Are you redeveloping that trust that you know what, I'm dealing with this at the end of the day of what it is, but I trust that I'm just going to keep on being able to do the job that's required, whatever that is. And I'm just going to keep on going with my body and moving through it. And whatever my body can give me, great. But because I'm mature in my process and I know what the role entails and what needs to be done, I can still get away with doing things that are still good enough to contribute. And that's the stuff that's just way more, that's a higher level topic, right? Of knowing like, what can I still do out here to survive? But with injuries, that's what comes down is trusting your body and fundamentally knowing that that's what's going on is you just don't have trust. So can you keep still navigating and doing things to keep developing a different kind of trust where you might not have the same trust that you had before, but now you develop a different kind of trust where you're like, okay, my body's not working this way, but it's still working this way. And it's still good enough for me to do other things. And this is the whole point of why I fell in love with mental performance and mindset. Adaptation, adapting, changing your mind on things, seeing that there's different ways that you can adjust and do things, right? There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. That's one of my favorite things about mindset and mental performance is that that's exactly what it is. Like you can participate so many different ways if you know how to take your mind and imagine different scenarios. So that's the thing I'd say about injuries is that don't get locked into the old way they used to do it. Start to try to see what's another way I can do what I used to do, but now I'm just going to have to navigate and adapt it and make it look different and still be okay with it. Just trust that I'm still bringing value. I'm still doing things, but it's just in a different way. And that's okay too.
Yeah, no, it's very well said. And again, like Vinny, I think anyone who wasn't familiar with this stuff probably could have thought it was bullshit, but actually hearing it come out of your mouth and hearing the different kind of ways that you work with it, and especially the different players and the parents and all these different experiences that some people who didn't play hockey just might not know what goes into it, right? And it's hard to really know until you actually do it. But the way you articulate everything, I think, really helps people understand a little bit more.
It's also, I just want to continue to differentiate here. Vinny is not a sports psychologist. Vinny is a mental performance coach, right? Vinny, I want to differentiate that. And again, and I said this, and I don't know if you heard this or not, so I'll say it again while you're on here, but I've told you this over the years. Having somebody who played the game and who has walked in our shoes as athletes, you've walked in these shoes of everybody who's doing what they're doing right now. It just makes, for me, it makes all the difference in the world. We had sports psychologists on every team I played for that were good dudes. You'd go have lunch with them because it was your number was called. And like, I even remember getting some really, really goofy advice from a guy from the Bruins years and years ago of how, like, you're young, don't get it, have as much fun as you can on the road. Like he would say shit and you'd be like, Jesus Christ. You'd be like, I don't know how my significant other would feel about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just think that there's such a different. Johnny, you got something to say?
Well, can we just clarify the difference between the two? Because Ice Clubs was asking, and I'd be curious to hear I mean, I can take a guess at what the difference is, but to hear.
Yeah. The biggest thing with mental performance is you're intertwining, like Colby said, is you're intertwining the actual cultural dynamics along with, the movement dynamics that might be going into, right? Because where my background was, right? Like when I was done playing, I got into coaching. And I was doing strength and conditioning. I was a skills coach, player development coach. So, I was looking at the lens differently of where, how do you develop your body along with your mind? So a lot of the mental performance part is knowing it. And my specialty, right, is from a hockey standpoint, is being able to say, hey, I understand the things that you're dealing with in terms of how to move your body that might be stopping you from having confidence in a certain play you want to create. How to think through a situation where mentally you're making these decisions that are actually hurting your thought process. But because I understand the hockey dynamic of it, and I'm not just thinking of it from a psychological end, right? Of let's do some visualization, let's do some breathing. I'm actually taking the schema of, all right, I know the scenario you're dealing with. Here's the challenges you're going to deal with the organization if you don't fix that identity right there. So it's being able to take the general tools that go into sports psych, but then being able to mold it into the actual cultural experiences that help fast forward or help give you the mental exposure to say, hey, how you're perceiving this right now, you want to question this and see it a little bit differently because the decisions you make right there could hurt you, right? Or the emotional part of it. of where being able to understand, hey, I understand it's hard not being on the power play. It's hard not being in the lineup. I understand what you're going through with that, but here's why it's important to work through that emotion, because in the end, you're still a rookie. You still got a lot of years ahead of you, as an example, right? Where going down the line, being able to see that. So mental performance is a lot of navigating the nuances that are going on with the ride, along with everything else that comes with being able to train your thought process, whether you're using meditation, visualization, breathing, goal setting. They're all great tools. But an analogy I give to people is like, it's like saying, go do squats or go do lunges as an example to make your skating better. Yes, it will make your skating better. But fundamentally, you still have to be able to go and skate. You still have to know how to skate. Same idea. Like, do you still know hockey culture? Do you still know the game inside out to navigate where you're not just giving exercises like visualization, breathing, all that, but you don't actually understand the cultural dynamics and the nuances that you're going to have to work through that could impede your thought process. So that's really fundamentally what's so different, is giving peace of mind, giving that calmness to, oh, okay, it's normal what I'm feeling. Here's the exercise that I can do. But the thinking about the scenarios from a mental performance end, there's still so much nuance that it's like, you're going to have to take that into account and realize that that is the fundamental truth, that if you want to be a professional, if you want to play at a high level, there's a consistency of thought that goes into that is way different than every other level that's down below that, right? Like I tell people all the time, the difference between amateur and pro is simple: consistency. A pro, no matter how they feel, no matter how they wake up in the morning, no matter what's going on, there's a consistency where it's like, no matter how I feel today, I'm going to show up and go do the job exactly that I know I need to do, because I've taken the time to mentally go through all the different parts of my process, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. I know the different parts, right? They're like mad scientists. Like, they really want to know everything about their thought process. Whereas an amateur wakes up that same morning and goes, I don't feel like going to the gym today. I'll be fine. It's all right. I can go to the gym today. It's okay. And then that just, compounds interest more and more. And then 5 years later, they're like, I don't understand how that guy made it. And it's like, it's pretty simple. They were consistent. You weren't. And so it's a lot of that, that's at the core of how I interpret it, is those nuances, catching those moments, being consistent. That's the fundamental difference between your general, whereas a general one, it's kind of like you're going through it, but you don't really know it.
Yeah.
That was me during COVID. I could skip the gym. It's going to open up again in a month. And then sure as shit, 2 months later, I'm 30 pounds overweight.
Vinny, do all teams, like I've seen this question in the chat. I think Randy asked Chad. He's a Calgary Flames guy. Nice. I know everybody has a sports psychologist. How many teams would you estimate have a mental performance coach? There's nobody like you, so I'm not going to say like you. And I can say that from years and years and years of knowing you. But how many teams would you say even have a mental performance coach, if you had to guess?
Probably. Well, I know in Chicago they actually went
definitely not the Leafs.
Yeah, they audited and they went around. I think at the time it was like 13. So I'd say it's probably in that realm of like in that 13 to 18. I don't think it's like every single team.
So half the team.
Not half. I'd say probably about half. Yeah, have somebody that's worked on that,
which is great. And I think you're only going to see more of that, because I think, again, young players are coming up with more like people that do what you do. Again, there's nobody like you, but people that do is somewhat like you do, because they just don't have that relatable factor. And it's really funny how players are craving it, Vinny. Like, I have our players that come to me and they want to talk about these types of things. And what do? I say, guys, like, listen, my way might not be the right way. I think you need to talk. And that's what I do. I literally have tried to, how many guys have I sent your way, whether you've worked with them or not? Because I know that my idea of how it should look is really not always the right idea of how it should look. And my own personal experience, which riles John Riley, we've talked about him on this show before. He's the head amateur scout now for, he's in charge of all the scouting for Tampa. He tells me all the time, your experience is not the normal one. Most kids you can't relate to. So you do need to make sure you're not closing your mind off to what else is out there. Because again, if you're that narrow in your thinking about how it was for you, you're not going to be real successful at getting through to young kids and to players. And I struggle with that on the show every day, trying to get Jonny to see things my way, because I tell him all the time, you can have your own opinion, but mine is the right one. So,
no, you nailed it, buddy. It's well said, because it's, the reality is, I think the biggest misconception people have about the process is that, to your point, right, your thought process will never be faster than your belief system. And what people don't recognize is, all right, Colby, you're trying to tell Jonny something. It's like, no, like, he has his own natural way of thinking about it.
Oh, people know.
Yeah, like it's like, that's the reality. So, and this is a big issue, right, in sports in general, is that the leaders are trying to say, you need to do it this way. And now I want you to go hit when you're not a hitter, right? I want you to go do this when you don't, that's naturally not who you are. And that's fundamentally where so many of these issues come down to, right? Is that the world is telling you what they're telling you they believe you need to be. Well, that resistance in your mind is like, yeah, but I'm sitting in my vehicle. And I'm going like, that doesn't feel right to me. I don't know why. I can't articulate why, but I just know it doesn't feel right to me. And that's what we spend so much time helping players understand, is like, what do you feel about it, right? That play for that feeling, like what's coming from you inside that makes sense to you. And then it's your responsibility to share that with those participating with you, because they can't go into your head and know how you're perceiving it, how you think about it. Like, nobody can do that. Like, we don't have that power just yet. Who knows with AI and what's coming down the road, and who knows with, all kinds of stuff, stuff that's coming. But the reality is we don't have that ability. So the only choice you have is learn for yourself what that is, how you think about things, and then share that with others. So when they try to tell you, you need to do this and you need to do that, you can go, well, hold on. Why do you think that? Here's how I see it. I'm not understanding what you mean there. Can you explain that better to me? You know how many issues will be solved? What I just explained right there, guys, are like, how many problems literally in the game will be solved just on that alone, of knowing how to articulate what you believe about the process and get clear on what you think. Boom. Like, it would literally change the spectrum of every sport, but that's not reality.
Yeah. Well, listen, we could probably have a 6-hour episode talking to you.
I'm sure you told Vinny 20 minutes today.
I'm really appreciative that you came on. I really am. I think the people that hung with us today probably really appreciate this. Again, there's no game until Wednesday, so we wanted to bring something a little bit different today. And look, we hope your team, I'm going to pick your team to win the Stanley Cup. So I hope you have something to celebrate here in the next couple of weeks. I also just want to say to you, like, get on the bike, buddy, because we're only going to have 5D in August for the team. You, Jamie Lundmark, and I will be the elder statesmen on the team. And then everybody else is like 20, 21 years old. I don't think Jonny's going to try to play, but he's got something more important to do that weekend.
Colby, may I ask one more question before Vinny goes?
Yeah, go ahead.
And again, thank you for the time, Vinny, but I do feel like
but I don't care about your time, because I'm going to continue to keep you here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't give a shit. Well, no, this is a question that I would probably ask if I were sitting in a press conference covering the Cup Final. So I kind of want to ask you, and I don't know if you can share any secrets or whatnot, but your insight, I think, would be. Well, no, I just think your insight would be interesting if you can share anything. But obviously, we got that behind the scenes look last year at the Cup Final with the Amazon show. We saw how Connor McDavid worked. We saw Matthew Tkachuk and all that stuff. And my question for McDavid, if I were covering the Cup Final, would be, Connor, after a game, it's obviously so hard to unwind and turn your brain off, especially in the Cup Final. But last year was your first time in it. I'm sure it was even harder to unwind, after a game in the Cup Final last year. Is there anything you do differently now, gone through it already, to unwind after a game in the Cup Final this year? Like, I'd be very interested to hear, how settling it is now, knowing what he's gone through, as opposed to doing it for the first time last year. Because I imagine, that guy wasn't sleeping at all last year.
No, and I love that question. You should totally ask Connor that question.
Well, I'm not covering the Cup Final. So that's why I'm not
No, listen, it's an amazing question, right, to be able to ask. And on a serious note, it's like, it's being able to get to the core of that from his mind, right, and understanding that. But the generality, like we said before, and again, guys, right, it's like, obviously I can't dive deep into
yeah.
the deal position it puts me in. But the reality is, it's like everything else, right? It's like, I think what people want to always be monitoring and sensitive to is that people that are in leadership positions, people that are in those positions, right? It's recognizing that having that responsibility is like nothing anyone else can experience. So you can ask those questions, right? And we can hear what people say to us. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, yeah, and it gets me upset too about coaches, right? Like my wife will hear me, like when parents will be, saying things about coaches and the coach of this, and it drives me nuts because I'm like, you know what? Then go do it yourself. Go experience that yourself. And that's at the core of a lot of this type of stuff, right? Is that you want to know what somebody else thinks, and that's great. But the reality is, whatever you read about it, whatever you hear about it, you have no idea what it's like for that person. So even though it sounds interesting to know when we're all calm and relaxed, really fundamentally, if you want to know, go get out there. You really want to find out what those people think, go put yourself in situations that are super hard for you, that are really tough for you personally, and then go and think about what that scenario felt like and go like, wow, that must be what they feel like. So that's the stuff that I'd always recommend to people is like, if you genuinely want to know, don't listen to it, don't read about it, don't do any of that stuff. It's go do something that puts you in a really uncomfortable position. Like go do, get on stage and do stand-up comedy. Go do some karaoke, right?
That's gotta be the hardest thing in the world, doing stand-up
comedy. Like literally parents, right? It's just like, go get on the ice, like go see what it's like to feel like and skate around, and then ask the same question.
Yeah.
Go do the things that are like super hard, and then come back and go, all right, now I got to think about this differently. And that's the thing I'd recommend. I know it doesn't answer the question completely because obviously I'm dangling, but
yeah. Well, no. I mean, listen, there's secrets you can't give away.
Yeah.
But that was like the most interesting thing I found, watching that show last year, was just seeing how Connor McDavid lives his life outside the rink. And it's just like hockey all the time, it seems like.
My son loves watching that show at least once a week. It's great. It's awesome, like seeing it come on and just like, here we go, just watching it again. And yeah, it's amazing, right, to see. But again, I think the relatable aspect of it, that's the hard part for a lot of people. It's like there's nothing relatable other than go do and feel it. So you can then go like, okay, it must be a part of what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then learning how to manage it consistently over and over again, that it keeps happening and that you actually learn how to like manage it. That's the stuff. Like, can you keep feeling that over and over again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I just wanted to ask that. I appreciate it. And now I'll let you go. I'll shut up.
All right, Vinny, listen, now we will let you go. Start training, pal, because like I said, 5D, there's not going to be many shifts off for you and I. And you and I are two of the 5D, which means one of us is going to be going out every other shift.
There's going to be a lot of endurance training right now, a lot of high rep, 15 to 20 reps on everything.
Sure. It's going to be a lot of short shifts, pal. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'll see you before then for sure. But I know we're doing the Atlantic District Camp together in July, so we'll be together for that, which will be awesome. Thanks for coming on today. I know we kept you way longer. I think our chat really enjoyed this. And again, a little different than what we normally do. But hopefully you'll be having some good late nights, and maybe you'll even get a ring here in the next couple of months. So we'll check back in with you. All right, pal?
Oh yeah. Thanks, boys. This was awesome.
Thanks, Vinny. Appreciate you. Wow. What was that? An hour 10 that Vinny was on?
Something like that. Yeah.
That flew by though. This show went so fast. Is there anything else that you really want to cover today?
Yeah, there is.
You do?
There is.
Okay.
Unless you're in a rush.
No.
First thing I do want to say, we did hit 29,000 subscribers. So we just want to say thank you for that. We're less than 1,000 off from 30,000. So we've been banging that drum for the last couple of weeks, and we're grateful for you all for doing that. So I just wanted to at least shout that out quickly. Vic put a couple of other things in here. Ropa Hintz, we found out, has a fractured foot. So he's playing through that. I saw the Jake. I mean, everybody was there was a lot of Jake Ottinger talk here today, and Jake said he was embarrassed. Listen, again, as we said, he should have been, it's okay to be embarrassed by the way you performed. And so, you're not shocked to see that. The London Knights win the Memorial Cup. They beat up on the Medicine Hat Tigers. Gavin McKenna, who's been in the news for his potential college commitment, has was held in check. But there were two things, or actually there's one thing that I saw going on over the weekend on social media, and Kevin Weeks was driving a lot of this conversation.
The state tax stuff.
Everybody is like, they need to fix this problem. They need to fix this problem. This is a problem because of this domination that's been happening in Tampa and Florida. And like, all I want to say back to this whole thing is like, first off, life's not fair. Okay. Like, it's never going to be completely equal. So get over it. The second thing I wanted to do is like, I just want to know this. Okay. Going back to 2010. All right. I want to read the results for the Florida Panthers over the last 15 years. Okay. 2010 didn't make the playoffs. 2011, they had a conference quarterfinal loss. Okay. 2012, they don't make the playoffs. 13, no playoffs. 14, no playoffs. 15, round one loss. 16, no playoffs. 17, no playoffs. 18, you guessed it, no playoffs. Then 2019, they finished 15th. Again, quarterfinal loss, round one loss, round two loss, then Stanley Cup Final, won the Stanley Cup, back in the Stanley Cup. So like well, first off, we can't do Vegas because Vegas is new. They don't go back that long. Tampa is a different story. Okay, going back to 2000, and I went back even further with Tampa. Won the Cup in 03-04, lost in the quarterfinals, 08, missed the playoffs. 13, lose in the first round. 14, lost in the finals. 15, lost in the conference finals. 16, don't make the playoffs. 17, conference finals. 18, first round, cup, lost in the cup, lost in the first round, lost in the first round. Okay, 2 teams in Florida. Okay, both with the exact same advantage. One team has, since 2003, has been pretty dominant. I mean, you look at since 03, what they've done in Tampa.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You look at the Florida Panthers, 15 seasons. It's really only impressive the last couple of seasons, right? So like, what people are completely taking for granted is good drafting, good developing, good moves by general managers.
Also,
trade.
like waivers, trades. It's not just
exactly. Gustav Forsling was a waiver pickup by the Florida Panthers. Yeah. Okay, so like, I'm just saying, like, again, I could go back and look at this for Dallas as well. I didn't, and Vegas is just too new of a team for me. And listen, is there a little advantage? There is, but like, people are making too much of it. The Florida Panthers are on a roll right now. Then eventually they're going to have to do a rebuild. What Tampa has sustained makes you believe they won't need a rebuild. They'll retool with good management. But I just think that we're taking away exactly where was the Arizona Phoenix Coyotes? Where was their championship? Alex says that in the chat. They had 0% income tax. How many Stanley Cups have the Dallas Stars won? They haven't won one
Nashville
since the Brett Hull. Nashville. Okay, so like, we are just completely ignoring good GM work, good drafting. Look at the players Tampa has drafted in the last 20 years. Guys they've hit on. Like, Braden Point was a 4th round pick. Kucherov was what, a late second, mid-second round pick? Like, we're completely discounting what good management looks like in the National Hockey League. Okay.
And with that too, Colby, players aren't just going because they're going to get paid. They're going because they believe that team could win.
Exactly. And listen, who doesn't want to live in a warm climate, because the stigma of that has gone. And listen, Dacky in the chat is making a good point here, and I'll read it. The worse the economy gets, the bigger the discrepancy income difference becomes too, Colby. Listen, I do think that that's a fair statement, Dacky, but we go back to the 08-09. We had the recession in our country. We've had economic booms and we've had economic turbulence, right? And so I'm not as familiar, Dacky, with the economic view of how Canada has been over the last 10, 15 years. But I'm just saying, like, I just don't think that it's as big of an advantage and it's as big of a deal as everybody is saying. I think we're just discounting a GM doing a really good job, and a scouting staff, and a development staff, and a coaching staff, and players liking being in a place. Who wouldn't want to go play in Florida? Like, why wouldn't you want to go to the pool after practice? Why wouldn't you want to put your family in a warm climate? Like, but why is it not working in Nashville? Why didn't it work in Arizona? Okay. Like, again, Dallas has not won a Stanley Cup since the Brett Hull. Like, what year is that? When he scored
99.
the goal against Dominic Hasek.
99.
Okay. Like, we're 25 plus years from that, and they haven't won. So we're just hyper focused right now on the fact that both Florida teams are being managed really, really well. Really well.
Let me say two things as well. Jack Eichel, best player on Vegas, helped win them a cup. He was traded there. He was like
Alex Pietrangelo signed in Vegas, right? Yeah,
but Jack Eichel helped turn that organization around. He was traded there.
Yeah.
And let me talk about this with Zito. He had a 115-point MVP candidate player that he traded.
Yeah.
Because he said, listen, we have a great player here, but even when this guy's at his best, our team isn't good enough to win the Stanley Cup with him. So let me make a franchise-altering move and trade him to the Calgary Flames and bring in Matthew Tkachuk. Again, some of the best players on Florida now. Sam Reinhart, trade. Carter Verhaeghe didn't make it anywhere else. He comes to Florida. He finds a home. He fits in.
That's not necessarily true. He left Tampa because he got a much bigger contract offer from Florida. But it's not that he couldn't.
He wasn't that player. He wasn't the player.
Well, because he didn't have the same opportunity to spread his wings.
But Carter Verhaeghe, if he was going to sign somewhere now versus when he signed then, is a different player.
Fair. Different player. Totally fair. Fair.
Like, it's not just
and what about Edmonton, Johnny? That they're a Canadian team in Western Canada that, like, look who everybody. Skinner decided to go there. Arvidsson decided to go there, right? Like, now players want to go to Edmonton.
Artemi Panarin took less money to go to the Rangers and the Islanders. He wanted to go somewhere, not to make about them.
All I'm saying is like you have teams that are being managed really well and they're doing really well. And I just feel like everybody's like, oh, we have this major state tax problem.
It's low-hanging fruit. It's low-hanging fruit.
Exactly. To me, it's become a little bit of a lazy argument. It's fair to say it.
I couldn't agree more.
To just lean on it and say it's the only reason. Jeremiah makes a great point. Carter Verhaeghe drafted by Toronto. Now, granted, there's plenty of guys out there who have been drafted by one team. Brandon Hagel was not drafted. I don't think Hagel was drafted by Chicago. He was drafted by somebody else as well. Then he ends up in Chicago, and then he ends up in Tampa, like traded to Tampa.
The one thing I will say, though, to support the income state tax argument is that I'm sure agents are more aware of it now, and they see a bigger cut of their own pay if they get guys to sign there.
Well,
right?
that's no.
If
guys are taking less money to go to Florida because there's no income tax, then they're making less money. Their client took less money. If anything,
but if they're
hold on. Let me explain it to you, Johnny. If I'm getting offered $6 million to play for the Flyers and $5 million to play for the Tampa Bay Lightning, that's $1 million less dollars that my client
aren't you still
made.
Taking home after you're taking home more after tax.
You don't charge a player based on their take home pay as an agent. You charge a player based on their overall contract. Whether you make $50 million in one state or the other, your 5% is your 5%. So it has, if anything, an agent wouldn't want his player to go there because if they take less money, they make less money.
I got nothing.
Okay, you got nothing. So that was kind of something I saw all over social media this weekend. I also, look, we're seeing a lot on social media right now about these major junior kids committing to college. And Vic asked a really, really good question. And I want the chat to really weigh in on this because after this, we're going to end the show. This will be the last thing we talk about. And tomorrow we'll have Brant Berglund on the show, and we're going to talk a lot about some of the advanced Amazon AWS Stats IQ, Edge IQ stuff from the playoffs and look at the matchup a little bit from somewhat of a numbers perspective. Mm-hmm. But
and then Wednesday we'll really dive deep into
we'll go heavy into the series. We'll try to we'll try to get an Edmonton person. Maybe we'll see if Goldie can come on. Like we'll try to get some people to come in and really preview the series. And then Catherine Tappan wants to come on Thursday. So we're hoping she'll be in Edmonton. We can make that work. But the question that Vic put in our outline today was, is there a risk for Gavin McKenna to go to the NCAA? Because like if he goes back.
Is it my internet or Colby's? Vic? Colby's gone. It's just me. I'm assuming Colby was going to say something about his draft stock going down if he goes to NCAA instead of staying in major junior. But I'll wait till he gets back. What were you going to say? Okay, thank God you're back. I was panicking.
Yeah, well, I'm hardwired in, and somehow
I lost my point, and I was like, "Oh shit, what am I supposed to say here?"
Well, no, like, so my point is that is it risky for these draft eligible kids to come play their draft year in college versus when they know they can clean up in the CHL?
Okay, so that's what I thought you were going to say.
Is that a risk that you think? Is that a risk? Exactly, a Higgins type of risk for a guy like Gavin McKenna. What's your thought? And chat. Lean in on this. We want to know.
First of all, limited vocabulary. I love Texas after my time in Wichita Falls. It was my favorite place that I stopped in. Listen, I think the stock could certainly go down because maybe a player is not as dominant in college as they would be in major junior. Like, Higgins didn't play major junior though. It's different. So I don't want to make him the comparison, but like, look what Macklin did.
Exactly. Like if you're Gavin McKenna, you should be the best no matter what, right?
Yeah,
if you're a generational NHL player, Eichel was like that as a freshman. Macklin Celebrini, and like look how good Will Smith was. Look how good Kyle Connor was as a freshman. So I feel like McKenna,
I think the opposite. I'll think less of him if he doesn't go to college.
He's the exception to the rule. But what about the other guys? What about the kids that are supposed to be top 10, top 15? What I'll say, you're graded differently. Like Sasha Boumediene, who played for the BU this year. Boumediene had like 12 or 13 points. He's going to be a first-round pick in the NHL, not because of what he did offensively, but because the way he played the game as a 17-year-old kid in the NCAA. Like, if anything, it brought his stock up, right? And then he went to U18s and he crushed it. But I do think it's a reasonably fair question for Vic to ask. And it makes me wonder, like, what if some of these kids come and struggle? Is that going to scare players off from going from the major junior route to the NCAA route?
Listen, Vic also just wrote, did you read that? Sorry, I thought I got a news text here just now.
No, and Marco Larrabee says in the chat, it could be the wrong decision. I think they should focus on what's best for them. If they need to get stronger, they should go to the NCAA. If they want more games, the CHL. Marco, what 17 or 18-year-old kid doesn't need to get stronger? Like, what 17 or 18-year-old kid doesn't need more time in the gym? And listen, games are really important, but I also think practice time is really important. All that type of stuff is really important. And look, if you're going to play against 16-year-old kids and 17-year-old kids, albeit really good ones, I believe that, playing against those older kids at a higher level, because it is a higher level. Like anybody who says that the NCAA is not a higher level than the CHL is your head is in the clouds. But I just think, like, what good would it be for Gavin McKenna to score 250 points next year and be able to cut every corner known to mankind and still do it, where now he can go to the NCAA and play against older kids, albeit, not as good as the National Hockey League level, but older and stronger, probably a lot more physical. Like, I think it's great for your development. Like, what 17, 18-year-old kid doesn't need to develop? How did it hurt Macklin Celebrini? Look at the jump he made. Look at the jump Eichel made. Look at the jump Quinn Hughes made. Luke Hughes. Like, there's a lot of guys that did it, and it's proven to work really well.
That's something that I feel like will also change in the years to come too, right? Like, there are NHL prospects who are already drafted playing in the CHL who, the team that drafted them might start pushing those guys to play college, right? Like, that's probably what might happen over the next few years.
It will, they will, and they won't. It's going to be really, really situationally.
Maybe that's just my own personal bias, though.
I think college hockey gets a lot more respect than it used to. There's always going to be the old school Canadian guys that don't like it or believe in it. But look, there is a comment from McDowell that says the CHL is kind of bush league. Who wants to bust around and live off almost nothing? I disagree with that. The CHL has, over a very long period of time, proven to be a really good place for players to go and develop and push their way up to pro hockey. So I do disagree with that comment. You're going to ride buses in the AHL, the East Coast League, any other type of, even college, you're still on a bus. I mean, you don't live on a bus, but you're still taking a bus, a number of different places. Now, if you're in Boston at one of those schools, the buses are really easy. But look, it's an interesting topic. And Penn State landed a big time prospect over the weekend, that kid Jackson Smith, which is awesome. I'm pumped for Penn State to see that happened. And like, I don't think Michael Meese is going to college. I don't think Martone's going to college. These guys want to sign and go be pros, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think Gavin McKenna will be playing in the NCAA next year. And I don't think a decision has been made. I know for a fact a decision has not been made where he's going, right? I know for a fact. And we might get it here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but there is a whole process that's about to play out for him with visits and stuff like that. So, we all speculate, but nothing is done there. And so I do think it will be really interesting, though, Johnny, for these draft eligible kids. Like, if you see any of that, how will they translate from major junior to the NCAA? Like, I personally think the best kids are going to figure it out. Like, if you're the best kid, you're going to continually have to move up. Even once you get to the National Hockey League, you're going to be your role, your first year is going to be different. Your second year, and like, you got to keep climbing the ladder even at that level. So I think this is just all part of it.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. That's all I really got today, Cole. Honestly,
what do we got for Bet365 today, Johnny?
No bet tonight, but we will just say our show is sponsored, as everyone knows, by Bet365. So if you want to get in the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365, they got you from game props, player props, totals, and the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You must be 19 or older. I'm not giving my official pick for the series just yet. We will do that a little bit later on in the week before game one starts, because I have gone back and forth with my pick. I submitted one to Daily Faceoff that we had to for like a graphic and whatnot, but I'm not making that my official just yet, because come Wednesday morning, I don't know what I'll feel. But Wednesday morning show, I'll give my official Stanley Cup final pick, and I'm sure you will do the same, even though I probably know yours, and I think most people know yours by now. I did want to say like one thing,
but it's also not easy to pick against Florida, and like that's never done me well before. But I'm rolling. I mean, like, where I'm rolling in this series. I think McJesus is on. He's hell bent to win. I don't think he deserves to win like you do, but I think he's going to go take a Stanley Cup and he's going to hoist it over his head. I thought what Ryan Whitney said was really funny. I saw a clip on the internet. If he wins it, he might just come out and smash the trophy. I thought that was pretty funny that Whit said that, and I thought that he might be right. So before Johnny says his last thought, by the way, let's make sure we hit that like button. We talked about the subscribers. We talked about the automatic downloads. We had a record month last month. Biggest download month ever. We broke a huge threshold in downloads. So we're grateful for that. Obviously you guys are the ones hitting that download button. And so, we need you guys for that type of stuff. And we do this show for you guys. So we are grateful when we hit milestones like that. We hit milestones on YouTube. We hit milestones on downloads. We hit milestones. I'm not sure if it was a Twitter milestone month. It might've been, I don't know. I never saw those numbers, but I did just want to take a second to say thank you for that, Johnny.
I don't need to like share this thing right now. It's been a long show. Maybe I could start it tomorrow. It was just a complaint about like flying. We can save it.
If you want to talk about it, go ahead. I'm not, All
right, I'll do it quick.
Get it off your chest, pal.
I don't complain a lot or about a lot of things, but if you are flying before 8 a.m., if you're on a flight that's earlier than 8 a.m. and you have the window seat, if you keep your window open the entire flight, you are the worst person ever.
Yeah,
people in the row, people on the train are trying to sleep. Yesterday, I flew at 6 a.m. All I wanted to do was sleep, and the person next to me had the window open the whole fucking time. I was so pissed off. Like, and I'm not the one to say something, but That to me is worse than actually putting your seat back on a plane.
Where were you coming back from again?
Nashville.
You saw Jazz obviously trolling you on social media.
Well, I didn't see it until like you guys sent it to me. I had no idea.
So you didn't tell him.
Agrees. No matter what time it is, windows closed.
Yeah, I agree. Like the window
should flying over New York City, but like you want the window open.
What's the etiquette for asking them to close it? Like, who are you sitting next to? First off, were you a middle seat?
Yeah, I was a middle seat on Southwest.
Like the middle seats are supposed to be for people who don't know how to pre-log in. They're for people who only know how to check in at the airport. How do you end up with a middle seat, Johnny?
Because I was in like the C group for Southwest.
Like, just spend the extra $25 to get to the B group.
Who microwaves fish in the break room? That's disgusting.
So what is the etiquette there? Like, do you ask? I would have said, hey, can you put your window down? Well, first off, I never would have found myself in the situation of a middle seat. So we'll start there with that. But typical for you, did you have shorts on too?
No, pants.
Socks?
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't you just grow a pair and ask them to put it down? What's the worst thing that happens? They say no.
I'm just not programmed like that.
But like worst case scenario, they say no and you move on. You put your headphones on.
Maybe they wanted to see the New York City skyline, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, you should have called your girlfriend and asked her for her help, because I'm sure you could have put her on speakerphone and she could have done it for you. Okay, I guess you're not going to say anything. All right, look, that's all we have for today. It was a very long show. Remember, we have, at your all request, Brant Berglund back on the show tomorrow. You guys have been asking us to bring him back on for months and months and months. So we'll have some NHL Edge IQ data, some AWS stuff. We'll have all that type of stuff built into the show tomorrow. And then we might just have to talk to him about his opinion on, the Pete DeBoer stuff and the coaching decisions. Remember, we talk about the video coaches that have aligned to the bench. Well, that was Brant, before he did what he does now. This was a guy who was on an NHL coaching staff for years. And so he has that experience that I think we all think we know, but he's actually lived. So he'll be on the show tomorrow. We'll get through some of that stuff with him tomorrow. And then Wednesday will be a big Stanley Cup preview show. We'll get some guests on. I don't know if we'll have Frank tomorrow. Maybe I'll see if he can do a different day. If not, maybe we'll start with Frank tomorrow and then we'll bring on Brant. We'll do a quick segment with Frank. I don't know yet. I haven't talked to him about it yet. So we'll figure that out.
All right. Yeah. I might have a guest for us as well, which I'll tell you off air once we're done here. So wrap it up and let's end this long show today.
Yeah. All right. We hope everybody has a great day. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out the door. Let's make sure we hit the subscribe button. And then really important too, like our YouTube numbers were a little down today. So do us a favor, get those comments on the stream once it's over. Those comments will help push us back up and get it in front of a lot of people to make sure we keep this momentum that we've built here over the playoffs. Subscribe, comment, auto download. You guys know the drill. You're the best. We hope everybody has a great day. We'll see everybody back here 9 a.m. tomorrow.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.